Hi, welcome back to another 10 with Ken. I'm Ken Steele. Last week we looked at some of the biggest PR headaches on Canadian campuses in 2015. We talked about rowdy, sexist, and misogynist students, white student unions, and radicals joining ISIS. We also looked at sexist and homophobic faculty, and conflicts over academic freedom. It would seem, though, that the biggest PR headaches, the migraines, if you will, are caused not by students or faculty, but by presidents and board chairs. Let's take 10 and take notes. Presidents and board chairs have very different roles within an academic institution, but both can see themselves as the ultimate authority, and both have an official platform as a spokesperson. It's a considerable risk for a multi-million-dollar organization to rest its reputation on the shoulders of a single individual. Any personal misdeeds can reflect directly on the institution. Consider, for example, the damage done to the Subway sandwich brand when their official spokesperson for 15 years was sent to prison. Or the abrupt departure after 24 years of the president at North Greenville University, a small Christian college in South Carolina. His sexual indiscretions with a staff member were captured in a video posted online by his son.
Here we go. Might be a bad day. What are you doing? Where is she? Why? It's over, Dad. This is done.
But last year, it wasn't so much presidents as their board chairs that caused major headaches for Canadian universities. We've already talked about Chakma Gate, the controversy at Western over Amit Chakma's double salary in 2014. Yet the president really did nothing wrong. The fact-finding investigation found that it was the board chair, Chirag Shah, who bypassed standard procedure and single-handedly wrote the employment contract. The task force made 22 recommendations for governance reform. An even bigger headache arose at UBC last summer, and it wasn't about presidential compensation. In August, the institution was shocked by the abrupt resignation of President Arvind Gupta, who'd been on the job only a year.
I made the decision that if I didn't have support from the full board for the vision that I'd been articulating since I first took on the job. In fact, when I first interviewed for the job, then it wasn't possible for me to deliver on the agenda.
When the board hired Gupta, they knew that he was a passionate reformer with an aggressive agenda. He didn't have a traditional background in university administration, but instead had founded Mitacs, a nonprofit focused on industry partnerships with academia. He was a bold choice.
I was looking at both the educational side and the research that we did, and look at what were the needs of the broader society. When you have change, when you have a vision, when you decide to move into new priorities, some people will be uneasy. In fact, I would argue if people aren't uneasy, then you're essentially perpetuating the status quo.
But documents released and leaked over the past 6 months make clear what happened next. The board grew alarmed by the departure of senior executives like Provost David Farrar, worried about controversial, perhaps political appointments in the president's office, and concerned about morale across the institution. Board Chair John Montalbano wrote strongly worded emails to Gupta. He urged Gupta to refrain from thinking controversial thoughts out loud, and expressed concern about Gupta's willful disregard for the board's authority. It certainly looks like it was a power struggle. Gupta has publicly expressed regret that he did not push back harder against the board instead of resigning.
I hate to use the word regret, but I do in some ways think that if I had pushed back harder, if I'd done exactly what you'd said, maybe some of the things that happened over the summer wouldn't have transpired. I do wonder if I'd made a different decision, whether the university would be in a better place today.
But the PR headache of an unexpected presidential resignation was nothing compared to what happened next. UBC business professor Jennifer Berdahl blogged that Gupta appeared to have lost a masculinity contest.
The assertion that the board exercised some form of prejudice or some bias towards masculinity was something that I actually found quite hurtful. Come September 1st, our president is Martha Piper. The second most important position in the university is the provost, Angie Reedish, and the leader of the UBC campus of 8,000 students is Deborah Buzzard. All three powerful women.
Board Chair Montalbano contacted her to express his outrage and said that he'd be speaking to her dean about the trouble she was causing.
I called her because we have a very good relationship. Over the course of the 2 years that we worked together, I believe that we became trusted colleagues. At her invitation, I sit on her advisory committee. And I felt that, rather than, go to the school and complain, I would just go to her directly. I felt we had that relationship that I could speak with her and say, look, I found your blog hurtful because it implied racial bias, and I don't believe that was the case. So I wanted to understand. The intent was to understand how she got to that conclusion, absent ever attending a board meeting.
The uproar over academic freedom was predictable.
I feel just stunned and shocked and very upset. The most sacred principle of a university is this right to academic free speech on the part of its faculty.
When I spoke with Jennifer, I said I would like to speak to you about your blog, but before you do so, I am deathly concerned about her right to academic freedom. Is she comfortable having that conversation? And she said she is. And I said, at any point in time in the conversation, if you are feeling compromised, stop me, because I don't want to go there. And so we had a fulsome conversation, and she didn't stop me. At the very end, I said, Jennifer, do you feel like you've been compromised? And her thoughtful response was the following: you did not ask me to retract the blog, you did not threaten my funding, and you did not direct my research. So in that case, I'm comfortable with the conversation. So too was I. What I did say to Jennifer is that at some point I would reach out to Sauter in the spirit of full transparency. Again, my concern for academic freedom, that this conversation took place.
Montalbano stepped down in August. Some of the biggest dysfunctions I have seen on college and university campuses occur when outsiders who don't understand the academic culture come in and attempt to effect rapid change. It can be a board chair used to running a top-down corporation, a president used to running a nimble startup instead of a centuries-old institution, or a marketing director used to selling packaged goods. It's vitally important to recognize that universities aren't so much hierarchies as democracies. Think parliament, not the C-suite, and a minority parliament at that. It would appear that frequently the preferred treatment for a major campus headache is decapitation. Somebody's head must roll. At the U of S, it appears the president thought the provost's head was sufficient. Her board disagreed. At UBC, it was the board chair's head. But sometimes, even after heads have rolled, the migraine lives on. Last June, former President Ralph Weeks filed a lawsuit against Medicine Hat College, claiming he had been made a scapegoat. The board had dismissed him in 2013 after Alberta's Auditor General found major financial irregularities with the college's International Education Division. Also in June, the former president of the University of Saskatchewan, Aline Bush-Vishniak, launched an $8.5 million wrongful dismissal lawsuit against the university. She claims that the Premier and the Minister of Advanced Ed interfered, and that the board did not follow protocol in her dismissal. So as a former English scholar, let me sum things up with yet another metaphor. The sorts of controversies and scandals that cause major headaches for higher ed institutions explode out of nowhere, like reputation bombs. The damage only intensifies when attempts are made to cover up the problem, to negotiate secret deals, or to deny an ongoing problem like abusive management or a sexist culture. On a campus, you're burying things in sand, and they will always surface. Better to pick your time than have it pick you. Much like actual bombs, you want to deal with them before they explode. Defuse them to prevent damage to the institution's brand and to the careers of students, faculty, and presidents. After the crisis erupts, it can easily cost 6 figures to clean up the PR fallout. Far better to detect simmering issues on campus early and be transparent about processes of governance and controversial decision-making. Transparency is fundamental to democracy and public relations. It's also vital that we don't lose it in academia, as demands for change and financial pressures force administrations to evolve. Thanks again for taking 10 with me. We have got some great episodes coming up, looking at the latest trends in branding and marketing, some hot new academic programs, and some intriguing innovations in teaching and learning. Meanwhile, you can check out dozens of previous episodes on iTunes or YouTube. And if you subscribe to my free email newsletter, we'll give you early access to upcoming episodes a full week before the general public. I hope to see you next time, but before you go, I have one more video to share with you just in case you missed it. The University of New Brunswick in Fredericton followed the example we shared last year from Great Plains College and published a dog's eye view of campus in November.